For more on this, I want to bring in Dr. Jennifer Kwan. She's a family physician and she's joining us from Burlington, Ontario. Dr. Kwan, good to see you. This potential order in Toronto and others we've seen around the GTA, it's targeting indoor public spaces, so stores, salons, malls. In Quebec, it's about mandating face coverings on public transit. What is it about these settings that makes them important for people to wear masks?
So certainly these indoor enclosed spaces are high risk for COVID-19 transmission. So anywhere where it's indoors, there's air circulating. If people are coughing, talking, sneezing, there can be potentially droplets coming out and infecting others. So wearing a mask in these settings is extremely important.
So you have been advocating for this for a while, right? Like you think that it is now the time to make it mandatory, that this is just the way to go?
Yeah, it has been recommended for a long time, but unfortunately there has not been enough uptake of mask wearing. And as everything is reopening, it is very important to prevent any additional outbreaks. So now is the time that it has to be mandatory in these high-risk situations with appropriate exemptions for people who cannot wear masks.
So there are those who argue that we shouldn't be making masks mandatory because it's hard to enforce. And in fact, the mayor of Toronto said it will be very, very difficult to enforce. What do you make of that argument?
So I do not want any enforcement. I do not want any fines or criminal penalties. I want this to be an educational experience and that the mandate sends a strong message that wearing a mask, if possible, is the right thing to do. So we don't want to be penalizing anyone, but we want to be distributing masks and making masks available for everybody.
What do you, and you do see this sometimes, where people who are wearing a mask inside stores or, indoor spaces, they almost don't feel the need to physically distance. There's just, they kind of feel as though, well, the mask is now doing all the protections. What do you say to those that kind of think that way?
So masks are an additional layer of protection in addition to physical distancing and hand washing. It is not a replacement for those other things, and it's not an excuse to get closer to other people even though you are wearing a mask. So we still have to be very cautious. Some studies have shown that people who wear a mask are actually more cautious. So that's good. We have to remember that as we move forward.
When you see, we're just showing some visuals of people getting haircuts, people are wearing masks. Do you think that it's safe to get a haircut if both the person getting it and giving it are wearing masks?
Well, there was a situation where there were two hairdressers that were infected with COVID-19, and because they were wearing a mask and all their patrons were wearing masks, none of them were infected. So it's definitely a good idea that if we can all wear a mask, that we can protect one another and reduce the risk.
Does this order go far enough, or would you like to see more done to mandate masks in other settings?
Well, in most public transportation systems in Ontario, they have been mandated, and indoor public spaces is the other high-risk area. We had come up with an acronym from my group Masks for Canada, which is ACT, A-C-T. So all indoor public spaces, crowds where you cannot distance 2 meters from others, and transit. So hopefully these mandates are enough, and it also needs to be consistent across the province and in other regions. In any area of high disease prevalence and high population density where there is a risk, then the mandate should be considered too.
Many people are working from home these days, but some people are not. Do you think that workplaces should also have a mandatory mask wearing policy? I don't mean public places, I just mean businesses.
So businesses and stores that are indoors and high risk and you have interactions with others, you can catch COVID-19 or transmit COVID-19. So masks should be used as one of the interventions in addition to distancing. We have to keep in mind that it's not just the customer and infecting the worker and vice versa. Sometimes workers can infect one another. So certainly masks or face shields should be considered and used in those settings.
When you look and see what's happening in the United States, how concerned are you about COVID-19 and the spread of COVID-19 if we don't take some of these measures?
Well, in some states that have reopened, unfortunately, there has been an exponential growth of cases yet again, and then they had to take a reactive approach and immediately mandate masks. So I'm really glad that we are taking a proactive approach in Toronto and some other regions to prevent that. And certainly because of our proximity to the United States, that's something to be a little bit worried about, and hopefully they can also get the situation under control so that we can support one another through this.
All right, Dr. Kwan, thank you. That was Dr. Jennifer Kwan, a family physician, joining us from Burlington, Ontario.